Tim Burton is racist, says a lot of people, and let's talk about what is going on here with that. Welcome to Popcorn in Play. Oh boy, so I watched this show on Netflix called Wednesday. It's about Wednesday Addams, who's a member of the Addams family, the girl. She was always my favorite character, even though I never really watched the Addams family like that. I think the only movie that I really watched and didn't even watch all the way through was the one starring Christina Ricci playing as Wednesday. So, my husband told me about this one on Netflix where Wednesday's being played by Jenna Ortega, so I was like, okay, sure, why not? And it's actually okay. I wouldn't say it's like the best show ever. I do like this rendition of Wednesday. Definitely like Jenna playing the role because I feel like she encompasses Wednesday very well in her look alone. So, yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm not totally finished the show right now, but I was a little bit surprised when people came out and started bashing Tim Burton. And I'm wondering, what the heck are they bashing him for? And apparently, because the main antagonist, well, it isn't really the main antagonist because like a group of them, but she's head honcho, she's like the mean popular girl. Her name is Bianca, and she's black. I don't know why this is a thing. Like, I don't know why it matters. I mean, okay, let me not get ahead of myself. There are these other boys that she ends up beating up, and the leader of all of them is also black. His father owns Pilgrim World. His father's very rich. His father's the mayor. And, you know, aside from that guy looking as though it hurts to smile, I think everybody is doing a great job with their roles. Bianca is playing a very good role. She's playing the typical generic mean girl, and she's doing it exactly the way everybody else does it. Every Asian and white character that has played it is doing it. And what I thought was refreshing was to see a black woman in that role, because I'm like, wow, they never get roles like that. And sometimes it's hilarious because people are known for being annoying. You can have somebody who plays a role that's annoying and they do such a great job at it that they're like, wow, that person is memorable. Thanos, for example, Josh Brolin, who played Thanos, great with his role. Nobody was bitching about that, and it got him more work. There are many other characters that played a villain role. Maybe that was their coming out role, and they played a villain, and they're like, damn, this character's pretty good. Let's continue. Some of them too good, like the girl in Get Out. I think she starred in other things before, but the girlfriend in Get Out, when she played the psycho girlfriend, I'm like, damn, she did a great job at convincing me that she was freaking, like, I was scared of her. Pretty sure she's like my size, but I was terrified of her because she did such a great job with that. Now, what I don't understand is why a lot of people are coming out and saying that Tim Burton's racist, apparently, because the two black characters that are not even, I wouldn't even consider them fully villains. That doesn't make sense because I think they do like have redeeming arcs at the end, but they're kids, they're adults, but they're playing kids in the show as many other white people have before. So I don't understand. This one director just happens to cast these people and now it's a huge thing. And I'm going to say some points here, right? Let's look at some of the points that some of the people are bringing up. So this person says, the only thing I really hate about Wednesday and most YA Netflix shows is how the antagonist is almost always a young black woman, #troublemaker. It's not lost on me. I just want to name that I see it. Okay. There's this weird thing that happens sometimes called confirmation bias. And if you were specifically looking for something, you will find it. I do understand that there is a lot of modern day movies where, you know, you often see certain things happening that people have started to notice and they call it out, but when it's on the other side, it's not okay. Like, I don't like that. I see myself as somebody who's down the middle with a lot of things, quite literally sometimes. I can see either side. It's an INFP trait. I like to see either side. We tend to also be social justice-y, but if you're an INFP that has lived life and, you know, you've grown up a little bit, you moved out of New York, and you see that, wow, there's actually way more different perspectives. You can still be tolerant about a lot of people, but can you see where different people are coming from? It's kind of unfair to pick out of all the bunches of movies where, especially modern movies, where black people are always the heroes and white people, specifically white men, are always the villains, because that's not lost on me either. It is like, okay, so now black people cannot play villains? That's not fair. Like, you have a whole bunch of people that are getting work because they're great at being villains. Like Jack Nicholson, when he played the villain. Hannibal, when he played the villain. I mean, a lot of these people who played villains, they got some good work and good recognition because of that. Joffrey, as annoying as he was, I will never forget his role. Cersei, I will never forget her role because they were so palpably annoying, oh my god, that you're just like, fuck this person, but because you hated them so much in the show, it made you remember them. And for that reason, I will watch anything else that Lena Headey is in, because she gave such an expert performance. And now you're denying black people the right to have that as well? Did you ever consider that there are black people who want to play a villain role? And, you know, I've actually been in that space where I hear the black people, and Asian people too, being all like, you know, it's very frustrating that they're leaving us out of being villains. What in the era where everyone loves villains now, when everyone wants them to have a backstory, all of a sudden now they're not casting black people. And some black people are really actually upset about that, because it does seem racist that they're not, you know, specifically. It's like, you know what it's like? You know what it feels like? It feels like, you know, you're playing a game with a whole bunch of people, right? Or you see a whole bunch of people playing a game, and you want to play, and everyone's having fun, and then when you come in, they're like, oh, you want to play with us? Okay, well, how about you take this little ball over here so you don't get hurt, okay? It's very demeaning. Like, it really is demeaning. In an effort for them to be more inclusive and probably be more tolerant, they're inadvertently becoming themselves less tolerant and more condescending and dehumanizing, because it's going to start to get to this weird place where they're like, well, no, black people, you don't get to play villains. Nope, nope, nope. And we're doing this for you because we don't want people to see you as villains, okay? So we choose to not have you play bad guys. Even if you want to play bad guys, no, we know what's best for you, okay? So there's no black people playing villains. So all the people who do get recognized for those great roles, black people will never be a part of that. Then they're going to start going into this weird thing where the heroes, oh, flaws? No, black people, you are perfect. You will never have flaws. Which is the reason why a lot of other superheroes are liked, because of their flaws and humility. Now, when you have someone that is a hero and they're perfect in every way, Captain Marvel, and there's nothing that makes them feel like a real person in terms of relatability and being humbled and stuff that people go through on a day-to-day basis, they tend to be forgettable. They tend to be generic, and you end up doing the people who play these characters a huge disservice. It's also a huge disservice when you start to say things like, or not outwardly say it, but basically it's what you're saying. If it's okay when black people are villains, only if they play in a movie where the black director makes them a villain and where all the people casting are black. That's the only time that can happen, because you're not allowed in our white sphere to act as a villain or somebody, you know, of that type of tier. That's what you're saying. It is not a huge problem for a white or black person to be a villain. It doesn't matter. When I saw Bianca was the villain, the first thing I thought was, wow, damn, it is so cool. You know, like, her face and the eyes, beautiful. It just, she embodies Siren. I think all the Sirens look like that, but they chose those piercing, mermaid, scary looking eyes, and they look great on her. She also carries herself like she believes she is the role. She's doing a great job, and because she stands out as the villain, I remember her. I'm like, okay, that person, I'm going to recognize them when I see them next, because they're doing a great job. Is she like the best actor ever? No. As a matter of fact, most people that are doing the show, they're okay. For a YA show, they're okay. But I understand it's probably a start for some of them. And can you imagine being this person who is starting out and you are throwing all of what you have into your role, whether it be a villain or a hero, and people are saying, well, she's black, so she shouldn't be playing a villain. What the hell? Like, seriously, do people stop to hear what they're saying? So, okay. One of the arguments also that people are pointing out there, which brings us back to the whole Tim Burton thing, is that, oh, supposedly Tim Burton's a racist, and so him casting this person in this role means it's racist. One person says, oh, I forgot, Wednesday is directed by Tim Burton. He's admitted to believing black people don't fit his vision or some shit. He's known for making evil or unlikable characters black. He is admittedly racist. That explains a lot. Now, after this person made this comment, I don't like to just take what people say, especially with such a heavy accusation like that, and just run with it. I tried to look up anything that I could find where Tim Burton said that he was a racist or that he hated black people. I couldn't find anything. The only thing that I kept finding was in an interview when he said this. I remember back when I was a child watching the Brady Bunch and they started to get all politically correct. Like, okay, let's have an Asian child and a black child. I used to get more offended by that than just, I grew up watching blaxploitation movies, right? And I said, that's great. I didn't go like, okay, there should be more white people in these movies. An important thing to know, I don't know how people took this and were like, he's a racist person. Like, look, he might be, and he might not be. The thing is, you never really know with people, but I'm just looking at what I see straight on. And when he said he remembers back when a child, when he was watching the Brady Bunch, I think that's like a TV show with, I don't remember. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I've heard of the name of Brady Bunch, but I don't remember exactly what it's about. But I'm assuming based on the context. You know what? Let me just look it up real quick. Hold on. Okay, as I thought, it's a TV show about an all-white family, or just a family. And, you know, then they put an Asian child and a black child in there. I don't know if those children became a part of the family or whatnot, but let's just say that people were like, wow, there's no black people in there. And these are the central main characters. And then this family, who is, are they American? I think they're American. Whatever. They belong to a country where the majority of those people are this ethnicity. And then they decide, you know what? Let's adopt a black child and a random Asian child. Does that not spell like tokenism to you? Is that not more insulting? I don't know, maybe I look at things from a different perspective, but him saying he's more offended by that, I do see it as offensive. I do understand why it's offensive, and if you talk to members of the black community, they will see it as offensive as well, because they recognize it for what it is. They recognize that the studio people who are placing these kids in there, they're not doing it because they care about black people or Asian people. They're doing it because they don't want people to think they're racist. That's the only reason they're doing it. They're not forming a central character who just happens to be black and saying, you know what, let me make a good story for this person, and, you know, this is their story. They're just be like, shut the fuck up. Just put this freaking black child and Asian child in there so they can shut their damn mouths. That's basically what they're doing. And that's exactly what the studios do now. They do that so people don't have to say, you're racist. It's not for any other reason. And that actually is hurting all the ethnicities communities, because what it's basically spelling is, let's just place a character in there and not have a passion for who the character is supposed to be representing. Let's just do it so that we can please people and they not think that we're racist. Oh, we have job opening, but we don't want people to think we're racist. Just some random black person, just get them, you know, just they're not qualified for the job, but they're black, so let's just let them in. And then it's a disservice because the person's not qualified for the job. So what they end up doing is they're like, see, that person keeps messing up. And behind closed doors, you're like, that's why we don't, get these people in here. And it starts to breed more racism. And it's very, very annoying when people just flat out deny this, because it is so blatant. You can see it. Like, it's very obvious. So I don't think Tim Burton is racist. Like I said, I don't know him personally, and I don't know everything he's ever said, but for the longest while, he wasn't even casting black characters, and I find it very interesting that people only have a problem when a black character is the villain. Now, as for him not having a diverse cast, I don't think that's fair either. I do think diversity is beautiful. Like in my country, we grew up with diverse people. It just is what it is. It's just one of those countries that just have that. And so I'm used to it. But there are certain regions where you have specifically a person of a certain color because of where they're from, but they're aware, like, oh, there's other people out there. But in places like Northern Africa, some countries in Northern Africa, like Nigeria, you watch their movies. Their movies are very entertaining. I watch Korean movies, Nigerian movies. I like to watch movies from like all over the world. And you know what I found? The majority of the ethnicity or color of that country usually reflects the people cast in their movies. It's so freaking weird. I know, right? Nigeria has mostly, I've never seen a white actor. Yeah, of all the Nigerian movies I've watched probably like 10 of them. And no white actors anywhere. No white actors. It's so strange, right? All the Korean movies and K-dramas that I've watched, I can name, and I've watched a lot of them. I can name probably 1 or 2 times I've seen a white person and they're horrible actors and they look dumb. Nobody cares. Spanish movies, mostly Spanish people playing it. Jamaican movies, they do have a mixture, but because of the region, mostly black people playing it. Crazy, I know. It's almost like the cast reflects, you know, the population percentage of the ethnicity because of the relatability. Now, I'm not saying that you can't relate to someone if they're a different color, but it's very disingenuous when somebody like Jordan Peele, for example, grows up and he says this is experience. I think he's mixed as well, but his experience is, okay, I'm more of the black community, even though there are people who knew him saying that, no, this guy actually wasn't in the black community because he acts like he's from the white community, actually. Who cares? You know, America identifies him as black and not mixed, which is very strange to me. But he makes all of his black movies and he outward said he didn't want to cast a white person. Now, I'd made a video about that a long time ago because I was like, dude, there is nothing wrong with casting all black people, but you coming out and saying you will never cast a white person, you know what I'm saying? Like, if a white person has said that's really, really disgusting to say. You don't have to say it. You don't have to say it. Like, you know, a lot of white people watch your movies, like, that's very incendiary. But I understand he wants to make movies from his perspective. Asian people, for example, there's Asian directors who make movies in America with an all Asian cast and nobody says anything to them about it. So if Tim Burton is making movies reflecting his life and what represents like his experiences or how he sees his characters, which a lot of people do draw characters based on what they find represents them, then it makes sense that most of his cast is going to be white. Like, you can't have every movie have a diverse cast. Like, that doesn't make sense. I'm not expecting them to go into a place like, you know, Hong Kong, or even though that is becoming more diverse, you know, which is a good thing, but I'm not expecting them to make a movie from ancient times in China and have white and black people in it. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not true to form. It takes out of the immersion, and people are like, well, why are people so offended with black people? Why is it expected that in only white ethnic stories for black people and other ethnicities to be shoved in there, but it's not expected when you have movies based on other people's ethnicities for white people to be shoved in there? If they had done that and started shoving German people or Polish people into a Chinese lore mythological story when it doesn't make sense just because they want a white actor in there so it can be more diverse, everybody would have their arms up, ready to punch and fight. If they had, you know, like a fantasy story that takes place in China or Korea, and it's the region, they're saying this is the region we come from as Koreans, and then they sprinkle Spanish people in there and black people in there and all sorts of people, it's not real. Like, I know people are going to be like, well, it's fantasy, so it doesn't matter. Yes, it does. For your world to be immersive, it has to mimic what you know so it can be more believable, thus creating more of the immersion. A typical example of this is when I write my stories. I usually do stories with a lot of creatures and stuff and animals from their point of view. And what would be an analogy for what people or studios are doing is if I'm making a story about like a coyote, like I have another channel called Entorium where I do stories about that using pictures and stuff. Sorry, my husband is nail gunning in the garage. But that would be like me making a story about coyotes and how coyotes live, and then putting dogs in there, like chihuahuas and stuff, pretending that they're part of the society. Like, just because dogs should be included. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, they're both canids, and yes, they're dogs. They exist, okay. But it's not conducive to the story or the region. Unless, like the story that I did write about the dog who was abandoned by her owners, she did come into contact with the coyotes, but she was the only one, and then she bred with them, and then she had her coy dog puppies, and that was different because the dog is the main character, and her experience is growing up with coyotes. Otherwise, you don't have a whole bunch of other dogs pretending that they're coyotes as well. I don't know if that makes sense, but like I tried to put it in a perspective that would be, you know, whatever. It would make more sense to have a cast that reflects the region, or even try this if the director just wants to. I've seen so many people on Twitter, and there are a lot of the same people who are claiming that they care about Black lives. Which, let's be honest, a lot of them just say that to look cool. They don't actually care. Because when you say, hey, if this is the case, why are you so vehemently prejudiced against this Black person's opinion that doesn't match yours? I've straight up watched a video, I think it was Ruin Leon, where he said something and a white person didn't agree with him. A white, like, person who is an activist, apparently, for Black people. And that's what they call liberal racism. So she told him, she called him the N-word when she got, like, really upset emotionally. She called him the N-word, and she's like, well, you see, you know, you blah, blah. And she was trying to, like, do damage control. Like, you're typing, girl. You don't have any reservation when you're typing. For you to have typed that out. Like, it's different if you say it, but if you took the time to have that cycle through your brain and then type it through your fingers, and then press the enter key to send it. Come on now, for real? So Ruin Leon, who is Black, is like, wow, okay, okay. Yep, thanks for being honest, for pretending that you care about Black people. And I think the conversation, I don't want to lie, but I think it was Ruin Leon, but I think the conversation was her trying to defend some other Black people, which is what makes it even more hilarious. A lot of these people don't actually care. And these same people, when you look in their feed for their Twitter thing, because I've followed some, not followed, but like I've looked at some of their stuff, all your characters, your little drawings of your characters are all white. Interesting how the people, I've seen it on threads where they're like, they're not being fair to Black people and it's not diverse and this person's racist because it's only about white people, right? Is it white exploitation? And then you go to their Twitter feed and you see all their drawings of their OCs and every single one of them is white. Like, okay, girl, stop. Can we stop? Like, I don't even get it at this point why this is even a thing. Even if, let's just say, play devil's advocate for a second. Even if Tim Burton is prejudiced, okay? Why would he put Black people in his films? Oh, so he doesn't want backlash. But if he's self-admitted, why does it matter if he gets backlash or not? Why, if he's self-admittedly racist as people are saying he is, why would he even stoop to being like, well, you know what? I admitted that I'm racist, but let me add Black people in there just to make people feel better. He wouldn't bother with that. And even if he's like, let me just cast Black people as villains. Okay, so the people who are getting the roles have the right, as is their right, to turn down the roles. What is the problem? They're getting work regardless. They don't always have to take a role where they're the villain, or maybe they want to cast, maybe they want to play as the villain. Has everyone ever thought about that? I've talked to people who are like, I identify more with villains. You know, because they're whatever, you know, I get it. I totally get it. And some of my characters, some of my best characters that I've written were villains. I loved it. My coyote story, there's a specific coyote in that story who is a villain. And technically he's not because he's just trying to survive. But like his whole mindset and sociopathicness, that kind of made him a villain of the story. And I loved writing him. I was so fascinated with that character because funny thing, villains are usually more interesting, especially if they're written well. So to deny someone of playing that role just because they're black, even if you're another black person and you feel like, well, you know what, we shouldn't be villains. That's fine, but I don't think it's a healthy thing to be like, well, black people should never play villains. That's no. Can we talk though about them casting black women as these hyper masculine types? Let's talk about that, because one of the conversations in the community, I know some people don't really care, but I'm in that sphere as well. I hear a lot of women saying, you know, black women are not protected like all the other groups are protected. Maybe it doesn't help that studios are casting black women to look like they don't need protection. How about we start like Sonic the Hedgehog? How about we start having more black women who look feminine? Because trust me, there are a lot of them. I straight up heard someone dead ass. I straight up heard someone say, well, the reason why, you know, I'm not into, you know, black girls or whatever is because all the ones I've seen on TV look busted. And I'm like, bitch, really? But then when I started looking for that, because like I said, you look for something, you'll see it. And I started to notice it. Black men, handsome. Most of the time they're handsome. Then you see the black women, most of them, especially modern day movies, look, you know what I'm saying? Like, and people can say, well, it's not about your looks. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because when every other ethnicity, Asian, Spanish, you know, Latina, Hispanic, whatever, they're all being cast white to look like beautiful people, but the one black girl they put in there looks like they didn't even bother making her wear makeup. She's the only one that's obviously out of place in all of the other ethnicities of girls. That's what you call a microaggression. Come on now, let's be real. Let's not pussyfoot around the issue, because a lot of people are not talking about this, and it sounds, the only person I heard talk about it and actually open their mouth and say something about it is Six the Goddess. And I don't agree with a lot of her things. You know, I found her channel when she was talking about the Jada and Will Smith thing. Watched a few of her other videos. I like some of the stuff she says. I don't like a lot of the things she says, because I feel like she's, you know, I just don't agree with a lot of the things she says. But what I do agree with is, yes, they are doing that. A lot of, especially black women in particular, are being cast in these masculine roles. Very masculine. I don't understand. And they usually, you know, look not like the other girls in terms of their fairness. And trust me, there are a lot of fair black girls out there. There are a lot of them that are beautiful. I grew up with a lot of them. Like, it doesn't even make sense. And then you have these same people saying, you're racist if you don't like, come on, stop. Look at what is actually happening. So I wanted to talk about that because I feel like in an effort for people to basically virtue signal, because that's what they're doing, you're actually hurting all the other ethnicities out there. You're hurting the black community. And it's weird because there's a circle of people that exist that feed off of each other. And they will convince, like, I've heard people talk. There was even a news thing, a segment, I think it was with 50 Cent, and he agreed with the former president or something. And then this white woman came on, she's like, what are you doing? You're black. Joe Biden himself. I know we don't like talking about politics here, but I like bringing up this example because people like to forget. You don't know whether you're for me or this guy. You don't know if you should be voting for me or not. You're not black. Who is? Who are you? Who is a white person to tell a black person what makes them black or not? And I think that whole thing is that whole mentality that's keeping, in a way, these people claiming to be for black people, they're actually keeping them under their boot by doing that. So I just wanted to bring awareness to that because everyone is barreling down on Tim Burton. I'm not doing this because I know him or I particularly care about him. I think he's fine. But it's a very weird world that we're heading into when you start to actually be at a disservice to people who you claim you're trying to help. And you never know. You may think that a lot of these people who are allies to the people they claim they're trying to protect are probably not really allies, and they're probably doing this as a means to keep people under. Like an abusive partner who prevents you from having any friends because, oh, friends always backstab you. I'm protecting you. I don't want that to happen to you. Doesn't want you to have a job or any hobbies. Well, I don't want you to have to worry about working, you know, and nothing's wrong with staying at home. I'm just saying. I've been in one of those relationships with a manipulative person like that. And they make you feel like, wow, he actually loves me. He's trying to protect me. But then when you get sober, you realize, no, this person is trying to be in control of you. They don't actually love you. They want to feel superior over you. It's what they get off on. So it's terrible. It's this hero mentality thing that is required for people serving them or doing exactly what they want you to do. So I just was so annoyed at that. I just wanted to talk about that. Well, what do you guys think? Because I think we should be having discussions like this. Even if, like I said, again, repeating myself, even if Tim Burton is prejudiced against Black people, I don't think that the right response to that is Black people should never be cast as bullies or villains in movies. That is not the right decision, because that's the other half of movies. So you'd be removing a lot of people who want to play those roles or have the option to get those roles, who are like, oh wow, can I play the role for this? I want to audition for this role. And then you have the studios like, ooh, we're getting a lot of backlash over casting Black people as villains, even though this is a pretty big character. Yeah, sorry, no. No, and Asians need more representation anyway, so they're the hero right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, you end up hurting people as a result. Now you want this wonderful person who is playing this role. She's doing such a great job. You want her fired from her role because you have a problem personally, because you have issues with seeing a Black person as a villain? Come off of it. Come off of it. But maybe I'm crazy and I don't know what I'm talking about.